In a remote cottage at the edge of the woods once lived two little brothers, Hansel and Gretel, together with their loving father and wicked stepmother. The little house was modest but cozy, surrounded by trees and the magic of nature. One evening, Hansel and Gretel heard their father and stepmother arguing in the kitchen. Their father, who was a woodcutter, was saying that things were going badly at work, and that from now on he would be paid just 3 denarii for each month's work. 3 times 1 is 3, repeated the stepmother. Do you know what that means? That we will have only 3 denarii for 4 mouths to feed. And what should we do? Asked the father, distraught and worried. The stepmother stared at him, and with a wicked air replied, You know very well what we should do. The next morning the children woke up and realized that their father was not home. Their stepmother informed them that they had to go look for berries in the woods. Can't we wait until father comes back? Asked Gretel, but stepmother replied, Do you want to stay here and do nothing, you little brash people? We have to find food to survive. Guided by their stepmother, the children went into the thick, dark forest. At one point the stepmother said to them, Go ahead by yourselves now. Go on for 3 kilometers at least. It is over there that you will find berries and nuts for supper. Gretel calculated that they would have to travel 6 kilometers in total. 3 going and 3 coming back. 3 times 2 is 6. In 6 kilometers they would certainly get lost. Hansel, however, had sensed his stepmother's evil plan, and so he had stuffed 3 bags of stones into each of his 2 pockets and given 3 more to Gretel. 3 times 3 is 9. 9 bags of stones. What are you going to do with them? Asked Gretel. We're going to leave the stones along the path, answered Hansel. That way when we come back we'll know where to go. We'll just follow the stones backwards. It went just like that. After reaching the berry plants, Hansel and Gretel were able to turn back. By following the trail they had left behind, they were able to find their way home. The plan had worked. When they arrived at their destination, however, the stepmother ordered the woodcutter to take her children even farther into the woods. The father tried to object in every way, but the stepmother forced him to obey. This time Hansel stuffed 3 lumps of bread into each of his pockets. So did Gretel. 3 times 4 is 12. They had 12 pieces of bread. Not to get lost, they would leave crumbs along the path. When their father abandoned them in tears in the thick of the woods, Hansel and Gretel continued for a while, before turning back as they had done before. This time, however, they realized that the birds had eaten all the breadcrumbs. Yikes! Finding their way back home was impossible. They had gotten lost. Wandering through the woods, at one point Hansel and Gretel came upon an incredible sight. A little house made entirely of sweets. Gretel exclaimed, Look, Hansel, how wonderful! And on each windowsill were 3 lollipops. 3 times 5 is 15. In all, 15 lollipops. Hansel, hungry, replied, Yes, it looks really delicious. Suddenly the door of the little house opened and a terrifying-looking witch appeared. The witch smiled sinisterly and said, Ah! I finally get 2 visitors. Why don't you come into the house? I can offer you many treats, you know. Hansel and Gretel, who were very hungry, accepted. When they entered the house, the wicked witch invited them to eat whatever they wanted. She showed them 3 tables full of sweets. On each table were 6 cakes. And since 6 times 3 is 18, Hansel and Gretel calculated that there were as many as 18 cakes in front of them there. They ventured to taste them all, eating with gusto and filling their bellies. When they had finished eating, the wicked witch grabbed Hansel and quickly locked him in a cage. Gretel, frightened, asked her why she had done that. The witch, laughing with that horrible mouth, replied that she wanted to fatten him up properly before baking him and eating him for dinner. Hansel burst into terrified tears. Gretel, realizing the danger that loomed over them, acted cunningly. In a sweet and deceptive voice, Gretel asked the witch to show her how to light the oven. The witch, smiling mischievously, replied, "Oh, sure, it's as simple as that. Do you see these 3 wheels? You have to turn each of them 7 times. "And how much is 3 times 7? 21, replied Gretel. "That's right, 21 turns and the oven turns on. Look at this." The witch leaned out, and Gretel took the opportunity to drop her and lock her inside the oven. With the witch trapped in the oven, Gretel ran to the cage where Hansel was being held. There were 3 padlocks, but Gretel knew what to do because she had spied the witch locking them. 8 turns had to be made per padlock. 3 times 8, 24. Yay, it had worked. Hansel was finally free. Hansel and Gretel came out of the house and realized that there were 9 different roads ahead of them. Since the witch's house was right in the middle of the forest, each of those roads measured roughly 3 kilometers. 3 times 9 is 27. In all, there were 27 kilometers of roads. To walk them all would never make it home. After wandering for a long time, however, Hansel and Gretel found their way home. Sitting out there, desperate and repentant, was their father. When he saw Hansel and Gretel emerging from the woods, the woodcutter ran to hug them. "You are saved!" he exclaimed. "Yes, Papa, we managed to escape from the wicked witch." When the stepmother saw them enter the house, she began to scream in anger. "How are we going to feed everyone with that pittance they give you at work?" The woodcutter looked at her and said, "Take it easy. At work we came to an agreement. We will get 10 denarii more for each family member. 3 times 10 is 30. 30 denarii is enough and more to live comfortably." The perplexed stepmother said, "Actually, there are 4 of us here." It was at that point that the woodcutter clutched his children to him and replied, "In this family there is no room for a wicked stepmother like you." From that day on, with their stepmother gone, Hansel, Gretel, and their father lived happily ever after in their home near the forest, promising never to leave each other. The children were never lost again, and remembered forever that thanks to the 3 table they had managed to save themselves from the wicked witch. And also from the stepmother. That was how they understood how important it was to study and know math. How about you? How well do you know the multiplication table of 3?